Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz, and this is a 500th episode of the two-man power trip. So we had to bring in a very special guest with me to do the intro here today, and he is the former president of WCW. He is known as the boss. He is a New York Times bestseller. He is the only man to ever beat Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He is Mr. Eric Bischoff. Eric, welcome into episode number 500.
What the hell, JP? You left out WWE Hall of Famer, but I'll forgive you this time. Happy to be here on
And
your 500th, man.
and WWE Hall of Famer, of course.
I'm still
Well,
not used to saying that, but I have to remind myself.
it's so awesome that you're in the Hall of Fame because last year everyone was like, "Oh, the NWO, they can't be in if Eric Bischoff's not in." He created the NWO. He's the man behind the NWO. So it was awesome to see you be inducted the year after by yourself because it's like, okay, now he's getting a standalone as well as everyone knows him as being the architect of the NWO.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was very grateful and really enjoyed it a ton.
Was it surreal to be back there? Like, how did you kind of feel and what was going through your mind?
Um, I mean, it was surreal in the sense that it was the first time I'd been in a WWE arena during the COVID, and with the virtual audience and just all the other various restrictions and the limitations it put on people in terms of social distancing, things like that. So the backstage environment was unique because of that. But other than that, now it's I don't know why it, in a way, it always feels like home in a way, but in another way, man, I've aged out of it. You know what I mean? Everybody around me is so much younger and, you know, newer, and I have very little, personal relationships with a lot of people anymore. There's still some, particularly on the production side of things. I think I've became, pretty good friends with a number of people on the production side, and they're all still there. They don't age out necessarily, but other than Randy Orton and some of the great talent that I got to work with when I was working at SmackDown for a brief period of time, um, I got to see Sheamus and Kevin Owens and people like that I started to work with a little bit, that I really grew fondly of very quickly. But other than that, man, there's a lot of people there I don't know, so it feels a little weird. Still
To
feels
me,
like home, but it feels a little weird at the same time.
yeah, to me, I was like just shocked by it. I was like, wow, I can't believe that they're bringing. Obviously, what happened with SmackDown, you're gone. I was like, wow, they must really just be on their mind though that they wanted you in the Hall of Fame and almost had to put you in the Hall of Fame in my view. I mean, you have to put a guy like you in there.
Yeah, I don't think my stint at SmackDown had anything, as a executive, had anything to do with anything. It didn't work out, but it wasn't. There was no animosity or anger. I mean, it was what it was. We both, we all knew it. And particularly Vince and I knew months before he pulled the trigger, so to speak, that it just wasn't working out. But it wasn't because of a dislike or disagreements or anything like that. It was just, chemistry. So the fact that, I did a brief stint there as an executive that didn't work out, I don't think that played into anything one way or the other.
With you though, it's weird, like you not being the boss, right? I mean, you kind of used to it from WCW being the end all be all almost.
Eh, I'm over it.
Hmm.
It's not odd for me. I mean, I can easily shift gears. Look, when I went to work the first time for WWE, in 2000, whatever it was, two, I think. I was an employee. I was just like any other piece of talent. And I adapted to that role very quickly. I embraced that new role. I found freedom and comfort in that role. So it's not hard for me to not be the boss. In fact, I prefer not to be very honest about it.
Easier on the stress level.
It's just, it's not what I want to do. Being the end of the line, so to speak, or the person with ultimate responsibility is not fun. And it's important, and you need to have the right person in that spot. But for me personally, the things that I enjoy doing in wrestling have nothing to do with being a boss. It just has to do with the creative aspect of it, or coaching young talent and how to get a promo, and maybe directing, things backstage and things like that, because those are things I like to do and I think I'm pretty decent at. But you don't have to be a boss to do those things. So you just got to be a part of the team.
Right. And we just passed the 20th anniversary, basically, of the end of WCW. What is your thought? Like when you think about, wow, 20 years, we almost had it, with Fusion Media Ventures, almost had WWE back and running. Do you have like a weird feeling like, wow, I can't believe that was 20 years ago already?
I don't think about it, and when I do, if it comes up in a conversation like this, um, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about how many other great things have happened to me during those 20 years. I mean, I've lived 3 careers in the last 20 years, and experienced some great things. So time flies, it goes by fast. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years, but it's hard to believe I'm 65 years old too. So it's just time in general goes by fast. But when it comes to, WCW, I don't really think about the time much.
And there was a great 83 weeks. Obviously, you're critically acclaimed and very, very popular and profitable podcast with Conrad Thompson talking about the Big Bang and what could have been. That was a really fun episode, really kind of cool, like what if kind of moment.
Yeah, and I haven't done that, until that podcast, because I just, as a general rule, shy away from hypotheticals. Just I just do. It seems silly to me, but in this case, it was kind of interesting to take the facts as we knew them or know them now, or both, and try to project what might have been a good idea under those circumstances. So it was pretty fun.
How's everything going with 83 weeks? It seems like it's such a great show. I mean, each and every week, you guys pumping out great content. You guys keep getting more and more popular. You seem to be easy to open up. I mean, you're not talking about short episodes here. You're very easy to kind of open up. Is that something that you really, really enjoy doing each and every week?
It's the most fun thing I do every week. It really is. I look forward to them, and I intentionally do mine on the weekends so that I'm not distracted with other things that I have to do,
Yep.
during the week, because I like to really have fun with it and just focus on it. And I do them early in the morning when I don't have anything else going on. So if I want to spend 2 hours or 3 hours or more, I can do that without going, okay, well, I've got an appointment, or I got a call I got to make, got to hurry this up. I really do enjoy doing it. It is, and I mean this, the most fun thing I do every week.
It is great though, like to hear the perspective of the guy that beat Vince. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome. Like I do a show with you, and you were on it with Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster. Awesome stuff. You get the Booker perspective, but you don't get the boss perspective. So it's awesome to kind of relive WCW when you listen to 83 weeks and do that show. Cause I mean, you're opening up. You're not afraid to, be honest and give all the true details of what happened.
Yeah, I found, doing the podcast has been, it's fun, as I said, but it's also been cathartic in a way, because for so many years, um, there were so many opinions about, what went wrong in WCW and what was going on behind the scenes. And, a lot of that garbage was generated by guys like Dave Meltzer, who really didn't know what they were talking about, or were being fed, bullshit information as a rib, probably. But I used to, when I was confronted with that, or asked about, what I was saying confronted, but when people would bring those, you know, that narrative up in a conversation, I would just like, ugh, not this again. I wouldn't get defensive, but I'd get really not interested real quick. And doing the podcast made me realize that really digging into some of that stuff and having fun with it can serve two purposes. One is I can destroy a lot of those narratives with facts. And two is I can have a blast doing it and make a buck or two. So I have a whole different perspective now.
Yeah, I love that too because you read so many internet rumors, which obviously 90% of them are bullshit. And you see this, and even friends say this, and they think, "Oh, this has happened to WCW." But it's awesome to have like, well, just listen to 83 weeks, or just listen to Eric. He's out there dispelling a lot of the stuff that's out there that was bullshit.
Yeah, and that's fun. I'm not the only one. I mean, Bruce Pritchard did it before me, and there's a lot of people doing it now, and I think it's really good. I think it's healthy for the wrestling industry to dissect and critique and when appropriate, shred the cosplay wrestling journalists that are out there, publishing this stuff and convincing people it's truth and it's fact and it's from great sources and all that, when it's just not. And I think now, because of social media, because of podcasts, because of shows like mine and many, many, many others, all these idiots who have been writing all this nonsense for years are being exposed. And I think overall that'll be healthy because the audience will be more informed, or at least given a different perspective, so they can think about it and choose what they want to believe. So I think it's a great thing. Sorry, Dave Meltzer. You thought you had it all sewed up until podcast came along, you douchebag.
The great thing too about it is you start seeing that maybe Terry Taylor, maybe Conan, maybe this guy, maybe that guy, maybe feeding him information or wrong information. So it's funny, like now that these things are getting out, I think fans are getting smarter and smarter and smarter to the business.
I like to see more informed, because referring to a wrestling fan as smarter to the business can apply to different things and different meanings. But, I think people are more informed about the business of the wrestling business, just like they're more informed about the business of the sports business. That's why drafts are such a big deal. Well, there's more reasons than that, but, salary caps and all of the things that you hear people discussing on sports talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a lot of that has to do with the business of the sports business. And fans are now more informed as a result. And I think the same thing is becoming true in wrestling vis-a-vis the podcast world.
What do you think current wrestling can do, like AEW or another promotion, to kind of upend WWE? You did it so successfully and proved to the world it's pretty impossible to beat Vince, but you were able to do it. Obviously, 83 weeks. If you even look further, it was a lot more than that. It was really 2 years of just complete dominance. But what would you say, like a recommendation, or for somebody first of all, it's not that easy to do it. It's almost impossible what you were able to do in WCW. But what would be some advice you would give to some promotions, AEW or whoever nowadays?
I'm not going to give anybody advice because I'm not in the business anymore. There's a lot of information I don't have. With regard to AEW, I have no idea what the goals of the network are. I have no idea what the strategy to achieve those goals may be. I have no idea what the business plan for AEW looks like. So how can anybody, honestly, now you can do it in a dirt sheet, or you can do it as kind of a hypothetical conversation. But man, unless you're in the business, you can't really comment on the business because there's too much you don't know. So I shy away from that. But in a general sense, if anybody, no matter who it is, wanted to compete with WWE, you got to go after them. You just got to go after them, not just be in the same business they are, but go after them. Try to take real estate away from them. Try to take audience away from them. That's a war. Everything else is cosplay. And that's okay. Cosplay's cool. A lot of people make a lot of money with cosplay, not being negative about it.
Right.
Well, it sounds like I am by referring to it as cosplay, but I think you get my point, or hopefully people will get my point.
Yeah.
It's okay just to be in the wrestling business and be very successful just being in the wrestling business. And there's room for that. And there's room for growth in that position. But when one says, how do you turn WWE upside down? How do you compete with WWE? That's a different conversation. Now you're assuming that that's the goal of the network that AEW is on. You're assuming that's the growth strategy and the business plan for AEW. And if it is, my advice would be, just go for the throat. Quit dancing around. You want a war? Attack them on their home front, which is Monday night or Friday night. Go after their A show. Don't go after their C show. It doesn't mean anything. Go after their A show and produce a better show than them and win the majority of the audience. It's no different than a restaurant. If you're putting an Italian restaurant up next to a Japanese restaurant, you have to provide a product that the people that go to restaurants on that block prefer. It's no different with wrestling. But I don't know that would be a smart thing to do anymore. First of all, WWE is a lot stronger now than they were in 94, 95 when I started going after them. Really not until 95 with Nitro. From a financial perspective, they are a much different company now than they were back then. So that made it easier for me to do things that were harder for them to compete with. It was a big expense for them to go from a taped Monday Night Raw or every other episode being taped to going to a full-time 52 a week live schedule. And they did that because of me or Nitro. Well, that was a tough decision for them, and they had to figure out how to afford that. And it pushed them to the verge of bankruptcy. So I've been told. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but might have been close. Now, are you kidding me? They're so financially deep, just like AEW is through the parent company. But the WWE, is so financially deep now that it's a lot harder to put pressure on them financially.
With you, are you the kind of guy that reflects back? You changed the game in wrestling. You did so many things that we see prevalent today. You were the boss of WCW when they actually beat WWF for so long. Do you look back and reflect and think like, wow, I had quite a career and quite a strong legacy, or are you not that kind of guy?
I don't think of it that way. I don't. I mean, look, it comes up, right? Through the course of my podcast, we're talking about things that I did during the Monday Night War era that I'm still very proud of. And I know strategically and creatively had a dramatic impact on the industry overall. Resulted in, a change in the landscape of the business in general that we're still seeing today as a result. I'm aware of it, but I don't like hurt myself patting myself on the back over it either.
Now, this has been quite a journey for us in the show here. We've had 500 episodes. You've been on a few times, which is awesome. We've had the opportunity to have you for a couple autograph signings, which was awesome. Just have a couple beers with you, which was just surreal for me and for us to be able to do that. It's so cool. But you know, just for me and the show, awesome to be able to kind of be able to have you on and be able to have you on multiple times because such an influence on the business, whether you want to, look back at it and reflect on it or not, because I know Conrad does, and I sure as hell will pump you up for it because you did a lot of good for the business and changed the game forever.
We had a lot of fun, man. It was a great time to be in the wrestling business. I think more about that than anything because, I get to put my toe in the water every once in a while at WWE, or I get to put my toe in the water every once in a while over to AEW. And I'm very grateful for those opportunities because, I get to visit some people that I haven't seen in a while. And in some cases, people that I've known for 20 and 30 years and have worked with. So that's always really important to me. And I'm really grateful for those moments and opportunities. But I'm also glad I'm not in the business anymore because it's changed so much. And for me, in the things that were important to me, or I guess still are, it's not there. It's just a different vibe. It's a different world, and it's better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting it was better back in my day. Jeez, I hate even hearing myself say that, but it's just different. And I'm grateful for the era that I got to kind of rise to the peak of my career in because it was a cool era. I mean, I got to work with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Roddy Piper and Randy Savage, the Warrior for a brief period of time. Not brief enough, but still, I got to work with him. and,
Yep.
and I had a hand in helping, elevate some individuals' careers and in some cases guiding it, in some cases just providing opportunity. I was really grateful for that in the social environment. And again, it was probably a lot to do with just because Nitro, we were on from 8 to 10, and before we were a 3-hour show, and we used to finish up the live show, get back to the hotel, in time to watch the live replay or a good portion of it, and just sit down and celebrate together and have a great time together while we're watching the show that we just did. And it was a very fun time. And that doesn't really exist anymore for a lot of reasons. And it's probably better that it doesn't, but I'm glad I got to live what I did or experience what I got to experience.
I've been a fan for 35 years, so I've lived through a lot of good stuff, good memories. But the NWO to me is the tippy top, just the best. I love that period of wrestling, and I don't know you can't. And the Monday Night Wars, you can't top it for me. I know this generation will say that these guys are great, but for me as a fan, it's just that era is what it is to me. I just love that era.
Well, and you know, you got to understand when I hear those things, I understand them, or I try to remember to. But you know, you get a 22-year-old fan today that wasn't around or was too young to realize. Well, it wasn't around because you wouldn't really appreciate Nitro when it first debuted, or the NWO, or the transition to more reality-based storylines. You wouldn't appreciate that if you hadn't been a fan of wrestling before that. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
unless you lived through that transition and felt it just hit like a tidal wave and last for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the whole Attitude Era, not only just in WCW, but in WWE as well. So unless you lived through that transition and felt how, you know, the wrestling industry just shifted on its axis in July of 1996, you couldn't possibly appreciate it. So feel fortunate. You got to live through that transition. It was cool.
yeah, yep. And coming up on 25 years since Bash of the
But you
Beach,
quit
which
doing
is
that. Damn, I keep feeling older every time you
yeah,
bring that up.
just awesome memories. Obviously, some of the best times as a fan. But Eric, this has been awesome to get you a part of the episode 500. I could talk to you forever, but I don't want to keep it too long. Please give everybody, the plugs where they can find 83 Weeks, where they can find you, and everything you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, we drop every Monday morning at 6 a.m. wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Just look for 83 Weeks with yours truly. Check us out at adfreeshows.com. There is a ton of amazing content there. There's different price levels and tiers. For $9.95, you get everybody's podcast without listening to any commercials, hence the ad-free show's name. But there is a boatload of other incredible content, interviews with people that you've not heard from in a long time, insight from people that you wouldn't expect, and there's some fun stuff too. So you can find me at adfreeshows.com or 83 Weeks every Monday morning, wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Nice. Eric, thank you so much for being part of episode number 500. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, my friend, and continued success.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at the Hannibal TV for more live streams and videos. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Hannibal TV.